I stood outside the bank in my work flats, gripping the letter like it might explode. The paper was yellowed and creased with my dad's unmistakable cursive. In case anything happens, the box is yours. That was it. No key, no combination, no signature, just a ghost of a message and a name I hadn't said aloud in 3 years. Dad. He disappeared the morning of my 30th birthday. One day we were sipping burnt diner coffee together. The next, his house was emptied out like a magician's trick. No note, no goodbye, just gone. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part? That same morning, the $300,000 trust my mom left me vanished too. Money she died saving after getting hit by a drunk driver. My inheritance, my security, my shot at owning something that didn't come from hand-me-downs or paycheck-to-paycheck stress. I was supposed to get access on my 30th birthday. Instead, I got silence, and a locked safety deposit box with no way in. 3 years later, I was still drowning in rent payments and office drama, juggling passive-aggressive emails and a manager who thought urgent meant I forgot to tell you this last week. Life wasn't awful, but it sure as hell wasn't what Mom envisioned when she set up that trust fund. I'd accepted my dad was either dead or didn't care until the letter showed up. No return address, just Miss Lacey Morgan in the handwriting I used to trace as a kid. Inside, one sentence, no emotion, but it was dated 2 weeks ago. That meant he was alive, and he wanted me to find that box. I didn't tell anyone, not my roommate, not my ex-boyfriend who still texted me poetry at 2 a.m., not even my therapist who already thought I had trust issues surrounding abandonment. Duh. I took the next day off work, drove to First Mountain Bank, the crusty little brick branch my dad always used, and walked in like I owned the place. Hi, I'm trying to access a safety deposit box. It's under my name, or maybe my father's. James Morgan? The teller typed, paused, squinted at her screen. There's a box listed under James Morgan, but it's marked as restricted. You'd need authorization, or the combination. Can I talk to someone about that? She called a manager. The manager brought me to a back office and gave me a look like I was about to rob the place with a stapler. You're not listed on the account, she said slowly. And even if you were, he hasn't been in here in over 3 years. I'm sorry. But I have this letter, I began, pulling it out. She didn't even look at it. Without a court order or the combination, there's nothing we can do. She handed it back like it was trash. So now I had a letter, a locked box, a vanished dad, and no money. But I also had something else, a clue he'd obviously meant to leave behind. Meant for me alone, that is. Because when I held the envelope up to the light that night, I noticed something, scratched faintly into the back flap in tiny numbers, a string of 6 digits, a combination, or another dead end. Either way, I wasn't giving up this time. The bank branch was barely awake when I walked in the next morning, 7:55 a.m., right before they unlocked the doors. I was already halfway through my second gas station coffee, my hands jittering from nerves and caffeine. I'd spent the night staring at that 6-digit number over and over again, 093176. It was too long for a PIN, too short for an account number. Then it hit me. September 3rd, 1976. My dad's birthday. It made sense. It was his kind of move. Nostalgic, simple, something he'd never forget. I walked up to the same teller booth, staffed by a different person this time, and forced a polite smile. Hi, I'd like to access a safety deposit box under the name James Morgan. I have the combination. She blinked at me. You're his daughter? I nodded. And I have his written permission. Technically true. Ish. She typed something, then paused again. I'll get a manager. Great. Round 2. The same manager from yesterday came out, looking annoyed but curious. You again? I found the combination, I said, holding up the envelope again. And my dad left this for me. He wrote this 2 weeks ago. Look at the postmark. She took it, scanned it. Her face changed, just a flicker, but it was enough. She led me through 2 locked doors, down a narrow hallway that smelled like lemon disinfectant and dust, then into the vault. I watched as she spun the dial on a box. Box hash 176, the same number again. She stepped aside. Go ahead, she said. I opened it. My breath caught. Inside was a plain black notebook, a manila envelope, and a flash drive. No money, no stacks of bills, no cashier's checks, no, here's your $300,000, sweetheart. Just paper, plastic, and a whole lot of questions. The notebook had my name on the front, Lacey Morgan, in my dad's handwriting. The envelope had the bank's logo on it, but the seal was already broken. And the flash drive, well, it was labeled with a post-it note that simply read, "Watch this first." I barely made it to my car before ripping open the envelope. Inside was a legal document, an original trust agreement signed by my mother, naming me as sole beneficiary and James Morgan as trustee until my 30th birthday, and a small sticky note attached to the back. "If you're reading this, then I couldn't fix it in time." "Fix what, Dad?" I drove straight home, popped the flash drive into my laptop, and held my breath. It was a video, dated 2 weeks before the letter arrived. My dad sat in a dingy motel room looking thinner than I remembered, older, nervous. "Lacey, I messed up. I thought I was protecting the money. I didn't trust the lawyers, the bank, anyone, so I moved it. I thought I could do better, but I walked into something bigger than I understood." He rubbed his face like he hadn't slept in days. "You need to look at the bank logs. I left everything you'll need in the notebook. If anything happens to me, don't trust." The video cut out. Just like that, no ending, no signature line, just silence. I sat back, pulse pounding. He didn't run. He didn't vanish. He got in trouble. And somehow, this bank? It was involved. But I wasn't scared. I was ready. Because if someone messed with my mom's money, if someone tricked my father, they picked the wrong daughter to underestimate. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just sat there in my pajamas, rewatching my dad's choppy video and flipping through that notebook like it was a treasure map from hell. The pages were filled with scribbles, crossed-out numbers, dates, transactions. But one word kept repeating, underlined so hard the pen nearly tore the page. Whitlock. I didn't recognize it at first. Was it a name? A place? Then it hit me. Todd Whitlock, Vice President of Client Services at First Mountain Bank. My dad's old golf buddy. Also the guy who signed off on my trust documents back when my mom died. And the same guy who once told me at a BBQ, "Don't worry, sweetheart, your money's in good hands." Now it sounded more like a threat than reassurance. The notebook had more. It listed 6 transactions, all within a year of my mom's death. Money pulled from the trust account in $50,000 chunks, labeled as reallocated assets. Then a pause. Then nothing. Until my 30th birthday, when the balance hit 0. At first I panicked. That added up to the full $300,000. I thought everything was gone. But something didn't add up. Dad wouldn't take all of it. Maybe he moved part of it himself before the fraud started. Or maybe the last few transfers weren't even his. And get this. The trust account had been closed 6 months before I was legally supposed to gain access. No one told me, no notification, no email, not even a, "Hey, just so you know we stole everything." They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I'd just assume my dad bailed and forgot me. But my dad didn't steal the money. Someone else did. I called the bank that morning, pretending to be a potential investor. "Hi, I'm looking to set up a long-term trust for my niece. Would Mr. Whitlock be the right person to speak to about that?" The receptionist was annoyingly cheerful. "Oh, Mr. Whitlock actually left the company a few weeks ago. Early retirement. Would you like to speak to our new VP?" I froze. Retired? Right after my dad's mysterious letter and video? Too convenient. "No thanks, I'll call back later." I hung up and immediately pulled out my laptop. 10 minutes later, I found him. Todd Whitlock, 57, now listed as private wealth consultant. Translation? Retired, but still meddling with rich people's money. His LinkedIn said he'd moved to Clearwater, Florida. Figures. Where better to hide dirty money than in a beachside condo with no state income tax? I was already planning my next move when my phone buzzed. Blocked number, I never answer those, but something told me to pick up. "Hello?" A pause, then a raspy male voice. "You're in danger. Stop digging." Click. I just sat there, phone still to my ear, heartbeat in my throat. Danger? From who? Why now? I grabbed the notebook again, searching for something I'd missed, and found a name scribbled in the back corner of a page. Clara M. Next to it, proof, copies, USB, backed up with her. Clara Mendez? My old babysitter? Wait, no. She worked for the bank 2 years ago. Dad used to joke she knew more about the accounts than the CEO. Maybe she did. And if Dad gave her a copy of that flash drive, then maybe I wasn't alone in this after all. I picked up my phone and texted a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, random question. Do you know if Clara Mendez still lives around here?" 2 minutes later, "Yep, runs a flower shop off Elm Street. Why?" Perfect. Because if anyone knew what my dad uncovered, if anyone could prove what really happened to my trust, it was her. And if Whitlock thought a blocked call would scare me off, he didn't know me at all. The bell above the flower shop door jingled like I was walking into a rom-com instead of a potential bank fraud cover-up. It smelled like lavender and soil, the kind of peaceful scent that made you forget people did terrible things for money. Behind the counter stood a woman arranging a bouquet of sunflowers and white lilies. Her hair was streaked with silver now, but I'd know that face anywhere. "Clara?" She looked up, blinked twice. "Lacey?" she said, eyes narrowing in surprise. "Oh my lord, you look just like your mother." I smiled, tight-lipped. "Do you have a minute to talk about my dad?" We sat in the cramped break room behind the shop, next to a stack of cardboard boxes and a calendar with every Friday circled in red. She poured coffee into mismatched mugs. I skipped the sugar and got straight to it. "You knew something, didn't you?" I said. "You knew he didn't just disappear." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked over to a shelf, pulled down a plain white envelope, and handed it to me like she'd been waiting for this moment for years. "I promised him," she said softly, "but if you're here, then I guess he was right to trust you." Inside the envelope was a second flash drive, and a note. "This one's for backup. If they try to erase the records, this will prove it all. J.M." Clara sat down and exhaled, hands trembling slightly. "Your dad knew the trust was being tampered with," she said. "He tried to move the money, thought if he physically removed access no one could drain it electronically, but he made a mistake." "What mistake?" She looked me dead in the eyes. "He trusted the bank manager to help. Whitlock," she nodded. "Todd told him he'd restructure the trust to make it more secure. He even made your dad sign off on new documents, but instead he drained it." I clenched my jaw. "And my dad couldn't go to the police?" "He tried, but Todd's brother-in-law is the county treasurer, and the sheriff plays golf with him every week. Your dad said if he pushed it, they'd bury it and maybe bury him." I sat back stunned. Everything I'd suspected was true, but worse. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a rigged game from the start. Clara wasn't done. "Your dad left town the same day he got a call warning him to back off. That's when he put everything into that deposit box. He told me, if anything ever happened to him, to give you this." She reached into her purse and handed me another note. This one was shorter. "They're watching the account, but they don't know I moved part of the money. The rest is gone. I'm sorry. Use what you find to get it back, or ruin them trying." Part of the money? That meant it wasn't all stolen. My heart hammered in my chest. I opened the flash drive on Clara's laptop. It had some of the same files from the deposit box drive, but this one went deeper. There were email threads, internal memos, even a draft transfer order with Whitlock's initials scribbled in the corner. Inside were PDFs of bank transfers, emails with Whitlock's name all over them, and one particular file that made my stomach flip. Wire transfer $50K Cayman, Doc. So he had stashed it. Somewhere. I looked up at Clara. "Do you know where he might have hidden the rest?" She gave me a sad smile. "He mentioned something once, a backup plan, said, if all else fails, the old cabin still has a purpose." The cabin. The rundown hunting lodge my dad and his brothers used to take me to every fall. It had no cell service, no Wi-Fi, and no plumbing. And apparently, no oversight. I packed a bag that night. If that money was out there, any of it, I was going to find it. And Whitlock? He was going to learn that stealing from a dead woman's daughter wasn't just immoral, it was a career-ending move. The drive to the cabin was 3 hours of cornfields, static radio, and anxious overthinking. I'd only been there once since Dad disappeared, just to make sure it was still standing. It was. Barely. The windows were fogged with dust, the screen door hanging by a single hinge, and the place still smelled like old firewood and mildew. But something about it calmed me, like this place had been waiting too. I searched for hours. The kitchen cabinets, loose floorboards, even the underside of the musty couch. Nothing. Until I remembered the attic. It wasn't much of an attic, more like a crawl space above the main room. I climbed the rickety ladder, flashlight in my mouth, brushing cobwebs away with one hand while balancing with the other. Then I saw it. An old metal lockbox tucked behind a box labeled Christmas Crap. It was heavier than it looked. I dragged it down and pried it open. Inside, a burner phone wrapped in a sock. A USB drive labeled final proof, and a manila folder stuffed with documents. But the thing that made me gasp, a cashier's check, made out to Lacey Morgan, amount $86,417. It was dated just a couple months ago, so he'd come back, quietly, without telling anyone, and he'd left this for me, hoping I'd find it, or maybe just praying I'd survive long enough to need it. I sat there on the floor, heart pounding. He really did it. He saved part of it. Hid it in the one place no banker or crooked VP would look. Not everything was lost. But the folder told a darker story. It included printouts of email chains between Whitlock and a third party, someone named C. Denson, discussing reallocation and conversion of trust assets. They were laughing about it. One line chilled me to the bone. Her dad's a sap, doesn't even realize he just signed over the last of it. By the time the girl hits 30, the account will be long gone. I wanted to scream, but instead I read every word. Twice. Because now I had them. Dates, emails, bank records, account numbers. Enough to blow this thing open. I just had to be smart. I took the USB-labeled final proof and plugged it into my laptop. There was a video file. Same motel room, same sad lighting. Lacey, if you're watching this, it means I couldn't finish what I started. But you can. Everything you need is here. They thought they were slick, thought I was too dumb to notice, but I kept copies. Always make copies. He forced a smile. A weak one, but proud. Do what you have to do. Just make them answer for it. The screen went black. I closed the laptop, sat there for a moment in the silence of that creaky old cabin. Then I opened my phone and started planning. No cops. Not yet. Too many ties. But the media, the state licensing board, and maybe a certain YouTube finance channel that loves a good small-town scandal? Oh yeah, they'd listen. And Whitlock? He was about to learn that stealing from a grieving father and lying to his daughter doesn't just get you a slap on the wrist. It gets your name plastered on every screen in America. I didn't sleep that night either, but this time it wasn't anxiety. It was adrenaline. By 7 a.m., I had everything uploaded to a cloud folder with locked permissions, multiple backups, 2 burners, 1 flash drive hidden in a tampon box. No one was deleting anything on my watch. Next, I made a list. Local news station, State Banking Oversight Board, 3 investigative journalists on Twitter, a YouTube channel called Bankrupt Behavior with 1.2 million subscribers. Then I sent out an email blast with the subject line, "Former bank VP stole $300K from dead woman's daughter, here's the proof." I attached the files. No fluff, no drama, just evidence. I hit send. Then I waited. By 2 p.m., my inbox was on fire. The reporter from the Clarion Ledger replied first. "Holy hell, can I call you?" Then Bankrupt Behavior messaged, "You want to appear anonymous, or should I call you the Blonde Avenger?" But the best one? A generic corporate speak email from First Mountain Bank, stamped with the name of their legal department. "We request that you cease and desist distribution of confidential bank documents. Failure to comply may result in legal action." I laughed out loud. They were sweating. At 5:42 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. But I recognized the voice instantly. "Lacey, please, let's talk." It was Whitlock. He sounded exhausted, broken, like someone who just found termites in his $1 million foundation. "What's there to talk about?" I asked flatly. "I didn't know. Your dad misrepresented things." "Oh, spare me," I snapped. "I have the emails, Todd. You signed off on every dime that disappeared." Silence. Then, "Name your price." My stomach twisted. He was still trying to buy his way out. "You think this is about money?" I said, voice rising. "You stole from my mother. You made my dad live like a fugitive. And you think I want a check?" He hesitated. "If you don't back off, people are going to get hurt." I smiled. "You mean you, Todd? You're not people. You're evidence." The next morning, Bankrupt Behavior dropped the video. The title? Bank Exec Stole from Dead Mom's Trust. Daughter Exposes Him with Bombshell Files. Within 24 hours, it had 300,000 views. By the second day, it was trending. And on the third, Todd Whitlock stepped down from his role as private wealth consultant. Translation: he got shoved out the back door before the lawsuit started flying. I wasn't done. Using the documents Clara gave me, I filed an official fraud complaint with the State Banking Commission. I attached every email, every transaction, every notarized lie. They called me back 48 hours later. "This is serious, Miss Morgan. If these documents are authentic, there could be multiple indictments. Oh, they're real, I said, and I have more. They launched a formal investigation, and suddenly, all the people who told me nothing could be done started singing a different tune. The best part? I got a call from the bank's new president, a woman, thank God, offering a private settlement to resolve the situation quietly. I declined. They needed public consequences. And I wanted every little girl watching to know that when someone steals from you, gaslights you, and hides behind a suit, you don't beg, you expose, you wreck, you win. By the end of the week, my inbox was a war zone. 3 news stations wanted on-camera interviews. A podcast wanted an exclusive. A lawyer I'd never met emailed offering pro bono representation in exchange for the thrill. Meanwhile, Whitlock's name was everywhere. Reddit threads, TikToks, memes, my personal favorite. Trust fund raider meets karma. Now he's broke and trending. He'd gone from luxury golf courses to hiding behind no comment signs and shaking hands outside courtrooms. I didn't even have to touch him. He did it all to himself. But it got better. Turns out Todd wasn't just sloppy, he was greedy and stupid. The state commission uncovered more than just my mom's trust. 4 other clients, all widows or single moms, had missing disbursements under Whitlock's watch. He hadn't just gambled with my family's future. He'd been running a quiet little scheme for years, and I was the crack that blew the whole damn thing wide open. He was arrested, indicted on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty. Bail, $250,000? Irony, priceless. And here's where the universe got really cheeky. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a civil recovery firm partnered with the state investigation. They were able to trace one of Whitlock's offshore accounts thanks to a routing number buried deep in one of my dad's notes. They froze it, recovered it. And guess who they listed as the legal beneficiary? Me. The amount? $149,820. Not the full $300K, but damn close. Plus the $86,417 from the cabin. I did the math. $236,237. Enough to pay off my student loans, buy a condo, take a breath without choking on rent or resentment. Enough to start over, on my terms. I stood outside First Mountain Bank one last time. Same flats, same parking space. Only this time I wasn't empty-handed. I walked in, asked to close my father's final safety deposit box. The same manager greeted me, less smug, more cautious. "You really shook things up," she said, sliding the papers over. I smiled politely. "No, he did. I just finished what he started." As I signed the final closure form, I left behind a copy of the notebook. Because someone needed to remember what trust was supposed to look like. Now, I'm not bitter, I'm better. I still manage an office, but it's my office now. I started my own virtual business thanks to that recovered cash. The name? Mom Trust Recovery. Maid of Morgan. A little nod to the woman who saved that money, and the man who died trying to protect it, and to me, the woman who refused to be the footnote in someone else's scam. Some people collect money, others collect revenge. Me, I got both. So if you've ever been underestimated, overruled, or robbed, let this be your sign. Dig, fight, expose, win. I walked out of that bank not just with access to my trust fund, but with something my father never intended to give me: closure. He may have vanished from my life without a goodbye, but he left behind a mess that forced me to grow up, stand tall, and fight smarter than I ever thought I could. I'm not the scared little girl chasing a father's approval anymore. I'm a woman who took on a bank, exposed a fraud, and claimed what was rightfully mine, with interest. If you've ever been underestimated or blindsided by someone you trusted, hit that like button. Drop a comment if you faced anything similar, and don't forget to subscribe. I've got more stories that prove karma doesn't miss.